All right. Good afternoon, guys. So, back to reviewing my trades. This morning was not a very good one. Um, I mean, it's whatever. Futures ended up being fantastic. Uh, First red options day in a while, which doesn't really matter because we've been so green lately. I don't know where my gaps went. I had gaps on my chart, but for some reason, I don't see them. Why don't I see them? I gonna have to draw them. I think I'm gonna have to draw them. They're on vacation, I guess. I don't know. Um, I can draw them on the 4 hour. Yeah, I guess that can work. 4 hour 11. That's too much. Essentially, here's the gap on the daily chart. Is this a different day? The same day? Okay. The gaps are roughly here. I think. I don't know. I don't know for sure. I can't pull up the daily chart and accurately do it because we've already way more than filled the gap, but that was the major source of my bias this morning. Yeah, here's this gap. We already started filling some of it. So here's NQ. I believe that should be pretty close. Let me see. Well, the gap's actually way bigger than that. It's this for some reason. Okay, this is turning out to be like a huge burden right now, actually. Okay. That was the gap there. And that's correct for the gap. Okay, now let's go back to market open. Because for some reason it's not on market open. I forget that the market opens an hour earlier for me now because I'm in Arizona. We don't do daylight savings. All right. So this is what the market looked like 1 minute before market open. I don't have any pivots near. I have one pivot here at the bottom of demand on NQ. I have a pivot down here at the bottom of demand on ES. And I have one more pivot for at the pre-market high. Now above that we have a daily gap on ES and NQ, and it's pretty sizable. Gaps are a big deal on futures. On the ES and NQ chart, gaps are a big deal. They are very rare, and they fill. So that's the majority of my bias right there. Is I'm bullish for the gap fill. I don't really know how I'm going to get triggered in, but I do know if the market opens bullish. Well, first off, we're already kind of invalidating this drop. If we invalidate majority of this drop, not only will I be bullish for the nearest pivots, but I'll also lean bullish for a continuation to fill the gap. So that's where my bias is at this morning. And then the market opened. Now, when this market opened, I didn't wait till the candle fully closed. I filled it a little early. I filled right here. I filled my calls right here, somewhat close to the top of the candle. It goes like right here. And what I'm looking for now is NQ clearly looked stronger than ES at the time. I filled my QQQ calls, not quite full size because, well, I'm entering a market open. But really, my main PT is actually the ES pivot here. And judging by this chart, it looks great to get there. Once ES gets to this pivot, I'll take profits and leave some, or maybe I don't sell. If it blows through this pivot and NQ's heading towards the top of this gap, I'll hold it to the top of the gap. But if that doesn't happen, I plan on trimming most of this trade at this ES pivot and leaving a little bit of the to leave in. I'll leave a little bit for the rest of the gap to fill. It is a really big gap, right? Now, that was the plan, and I entered the QQQ 603 calls at roughly 73 cents. They got to a high of 80, or they got to like a high of 90 cents on this candle, but something was wrong. On the options chart, this candle was a red candle. It was a red bullhammer looking candle on the options chart. So I filled here, and then when this candle happened, it came back down to my entry. Well, I filled it. I filled at, let me pull up the exact calls. I filled up at 73 cents. Okay. That's when I filled. And let me go here. The candle closed at 86 cents. And then when this next candle closed, so I filled at 73, the candle closed almost at 90 cents, so I'm green. And then when this candle happened to pull back to my entry and closed, this candle, oh, I'm looking at the wrong chart, closed at 64 cents. So I'm already down 15 freaking percent on this trade. Magically. This is where I filled initially. And then this next candle happened. It was a green candle, but the calls dropped again to 58 cents. And I'm like, oh my gosh. You know, I feel like almost every day I complain about chop, but this takes the cake this year. The chop was horrendous. It was freaking terrible. So this candle happened. I just about stopped out, but it got a buying wick. I said I'm out the second it invalidates. I think I actually got a better fill in this. Let me check in my options channel real quick. Yeah, no. So my big PT was like all the way up here, which is kind of far away. And I filled roughly here, and my stop loss was pretty much the invalidation of this candle. Not crazy, right? So it dumped and then got a huge buying wick, and then the second this buying wick starts to invalidate, I'm out. Well, this happened to be a big green candle, and the calls didn't come back up at all. This was a pretty big green candle. They didn't come back up at all. The second the green candle validated, I stopped out. This green candle here was actually a red candle, and this candle closed at 47 freaking cents. It was freaking terrible. I stopped out on this candle about halfway down. It did bounce back up as well because some of my stuff didn't fill early into that candle. Was not a very fun time. Was not a very fun time. So I started today with a huge loss, and yeah, was a pretty sizable loss. I filled my exit at 41 cents, and I stopped out here. I even moved my stop loss. I stopped out at 41 cents for a 45% loss. Now, granted, I wasn't completely full size in the trade, but I wasn't half size. I was almost full size because it looked pretty good, especially with the app above. So started with a 45% freaking loss, which is terrible. Contracts got freaking destroyed. But it is what it is, right? I had a pretty tight stop loss. It had an insane risk to reward. I have to get in that trade. It just sucks. And I looked at the 602 calls and the 604 calls, and they didn't chop as much. So for whatever reason, the 603 calls, the market open candle was a red one on the premiums. Now I end up filling SPX puts here because this looks pretty good. Doesn't look bad. Save some buying power to add, but frankly, I was pretty much in the same size as this trade. And we have a bearish liquidity sweep here on ES and here on NQ. We've invalidated a majority of the move, and ES is weaker than NQ. Now, we are in demand, so it could bounce, so I wanted to add a little bit. But regardless, this PT was a decent distance away, and it did end up getting there pretty nicely. I sold pretty much everything here and then kept a small runner in case NQ breaks demand as well, and I'm bearish for NQ to break demand. But it didn't end up breaking demand until I stopped out the last bit on this candle because it put in a bullish liquidity sweep here. It did end up breaking demand shortly after. Now that trade went a lot further down. That trade went 60 ticks on ES, which is more than double the distance of my NQ stop loss. But because I'm trading options, the options were just terribly choppy this morning. 28% gains is what I got on that trade. So I'm currently very light red on the day. And I would like to re-enter QQQ puts, or re-enter puts, but on QQQ because it did miss this pivot, but it still got demand. And we did get a bullish liquidity sweep here on the NASDAQ and here on ES. So I wasn't willing to do it. And then this happened. Now I can't enter because the risk to reward is too terrible. And it ended up getting there. So we swept that liquidity, and I really only have one more trade that I can take. If we shoot back up and invalidate a majority of the drop, I can take one more trade to re-attack that high of day. Because I'm still bullish overall, right? Overall, sometime today, I'm bullish for this gap to fill. Statistically, it's likely, right? But only if we invalidate the majority of the move, and it's got to have solid momentum. If that doesn't happen, I can't get in. Well, we put in this beautiful reversal candle with a volume spike. We missed demand, but we put in this beautiful reversal candle, swept liquidity, looked pretty good, and I wasn't really thinking I was going to re-enter a trade. But I did end up re-entering calls. Where was my... Not here. I thought I filled it at 7 o'clock for some reason. No. Now we're starting to come up a bit more. There we go. Now I couldn't tell which was stronger at the time I entered. So I entered half size in each. Actually, a little bit less than half size in each. But combined, I took SPX and QQQ calls. Combined, I was in about one normal size trade. All right, I'm like, all right, I have to take it. We got a bullish liquidity sweep. We've invalidated a majority of the drop. And we have a very nice gap overhead. The problem is I'm betting against a bearish liquidity sweep and ES is in supply, but I got to give it one more shot. So I did enter one more trade split between SPX and the NASDAQ. And I got a pretty decent fill at the start. It started off green. It's going pretty good. It was going pretty good. I was pretty green. I think I was green by like 30% on QQQ and 10% on SPX. And then I wasn't, and I stopped out. So yeah, that was kind of a blue ball, but that's how my day ended right there. By that time, I was done trading. Now I'm just going to wait to trade futures. Didn't take a very big loss, though. Didn't take a very big loss at all. I filled right before the end of this candle, pretty much right as it crossed my stop loss. It was a pretty easy candle to stop out on because it was a candle from hell. Only took minus 15% on the NASDAQ and minus 24% on SPX. So I roughly added one more 20% loss. So overall today, I went from very small red to like kind of medium red, right? I averaged minus 20% on that one, minus 45% on the first one, so it's minus 65%, and I made almost half of that back with my green trade. So I'm red by like one minus 35% trade, which isn't terrible, right? So medium red day. Friggin' sucks. But I did give you guys a TA alert, and I said, you know, I'm still relatively bullish for the gap to fill on ES and NQ if we come back up, right? And that's kind of what I was going to attack for my futures trading if we came back up. If we go down, I don't really have anything, right? These were my only pivots. I guess I have a new pivot at low a day, but that's pretty much it. And for futures, we did end up coming back up. We made a lower low on ES, put in kind of a falling wedge, and we did come back up, and I did end up filling longs. Not on this candle because I'm not allowed to trade until the second hour starts. On this candle, I entered longs, did pretty well, and then I went ahead and took more longs because I was re-triggered in for this bullish consolidation for the NQ gap fill. And that was done trading after that. Made a bunch of money on futures. So futures was a much better day than options. But there was still money left on the table because we just kept going up. So lots of money to be made. Unfortunately, it didn't happen for me in the first hour. But futures did well. And the sentiment did end up playing out. So all you guys that took that TA alert made a bunch of money. And, you know, it is what it is, right? I have to be overall bullish. When there's a gap that close and we invalidate a majority of the drop and we're heading towards that gap, I have to be bullish. And there's a reason for that. And even though I'd stopped out and had a red day this morning on options, the sentiment did end up playing out later in the day, which validates that sentiment. And it's unlucky, right? The trades that I took today, all of them were statistically likely to happen. So it's unlucky that they didn't. But, you know, if tomorrow happens, I'd take those same trades. And I probably win on them statistically because they were solid trades. But that was my morning. Red on options, green on futures. Not a great start to this week, but I'm not mad. You know, it's a fairly mild red day, and I think it's been well over It's been roughly 2 weeks since my last raid day on options. We've been kicking ass and taking names lately, so no complaints from me. Jellycat says, do you guys have trading signals here? Yes. But we focus on actually building traders. We don't focus on breeding a bunch of blind sheep that need to be breastfed by a shepherd, if that makes sense. But yes, I do alert my trades and trade live every single morning in premium. It's great to hang out and learn how to trade and maybe even make a little bit of money with me. But does anyone else have any questions or comments before I wrap up this trade review? No, everyone's good. All right. While you guys are here, the Trade Arena is starting in 10 minutes. Log into tradearena.ai. It doesn't matter if you're premium or not. Log in with your Discord. Follow the Trade Arena, or sorry, not the Aurora community. You'll see in the bottom right, it'll be your joined Trade Arena communities. Go ahead and follow this community, and all of the arenas will pop up, right? You guys need to get in that waiting room because it starts in just over 10 minutes. The second that timer in the waiting room gets to 0, you're locked out, unless it breaks. There is a chance it breaks because I did a bunch of security updates yesterday. If it breaks, I'll fix it. I'll update the code, fix it, and then just start another arena. So that may happen. But otherwise, the doors will be shut. So, but all right, I'm going to post this on YouTube. I'm going to do the giveaway real quick. So I'm not going to leave voice. You can stay in here. I'm going to do today's promo giveaway. So I'll spin the wheel 8 times, and then we'll have Trade Arena. So I'll go ahead and post it now. And if anyone on YouTube has any questions, just leave a comment on the video. I will see it eventually and respond.